we're really coming down to the wire now. This is actually the last officially released by Capcom Mega Man game I will be covering in this tier list series. Now, there is one more game, but it was made by fans, has no affiliation whatsoever with Capcom. We'll worry about that next time. But this time, the last official game I'm covering is Mega Man 5 for the Game Boy. And it's a little bit ironic that I'm saying it's the last official game that I'm covering, because the version of this game that I am going to be making my final judgments on is a ROM hack of it that was just released right around the time that I released the first episode of this tier list. It is a full colorization hack of it, and it also removes most, if not all, of the slowdown present in the Game Boy games, since it's a Game Boy Color game now. But for posterity's sake, I will be showing both versions of it. And I will also be referring to the Game Boy series by the name that the colorization hack has coined for it, which is actually just honestly what it should have been all along, because in Japan it was called Rockman World, but everywhere else we got the very confusing Mega Man Dr. Wily's Revenge, Mega Man Roman numeral 2, Mega Man Roman numeral 3, Mega Man Roman numeral 4, and Mega Man Roman numeral 5, which was really confusing when you consider that the in-game title screens of a lot of the NES games used Roman numerals as well. I don't know. Generally, the fans have considered the Roman numerals to refer to the Game Boy games and the Arabic numbers to refer to the NES games. But I'm not going to do that mess. The game, when it was colorized, was released under the name Mega Man World 5 DX, so I will be calling it Mega Man World 5. That said, our first star droid, because there are no robot masters in this game, is Jupiter. Now, Jupiter lives on the ceiling. That's just his home, and he's not too good for it. He has a very, very simple pattern that he just repeats like clockwork. He will keep his thrusters going at all times to stay at the ceiling, and I mean at the ceiling. Like, there's no space between the ceiling and where he's at. After a few seconds, he will shoot a lightning bolt directly down that stays energized, I guess, for lack of a better word, for like 3 or 4 seconds. And at this time, he'll stop moving left and right. And when he's done firing that beam, he will shoot out 4 little pellets that spread out from from his hands. But directly where the lightning bolt was is a safe spot from them. After those go off the screen, he will immediately follow that up with a swoop, which you are intended to slide to get away from. And then he'll just repeat the pattern all over again. It is a very simple pattern, and he has an extremely appropriate weakness in the bubble bomb, which when you fire, it will rise slowly to the ceiling while weaving left and right from the general area you fired it from. It deals 3 damage upon contacting him, and he also has a secondary weakness in the salt water, which deals 2 damage, but that's not important. Jupiter is... he's alright. It's kind of fun to learn this pattern, and it's pretty satisfying when you can get that no-hit kill off on him. So our first Star Droid is making a strong case for his brethren in the A tier, and we're going to stick him right in front of Metal Man there. Next up we have Mars, who is weak to the salt water, taking 3 damage from it, with a secondary weakness to the electric shock at 2 damage. Mars, again, has a simple pattern. You're not going to really get complicated patterns from these Game Boy games, but he tends to stay in one place, and what he does is he will shoot a bunch of his signature move, the photon missile, which can be slid under, and then he'll follow that up with a barrage of bullets that cannot be slid under, and they get fired rapidly enough that it's very difficult to jump between them without getting hit by the next one, but slow enough that it is possible to jump between them. And then after that, he will become invulnerable in like a tank mode and move across to the opposite wall, laying down 2 landmines that, if you touch them, will explode on contact, or otherwise they will just explode on their own after a while, and he does remain invulnerable until they both explode. I believe you can also shoot them, but you gotta ask if it's worth using the ammo it takes to hit them, because your Mega Buster's not gonna hit them. You gotta use a weapon that can hit on the floor. I think this boss spends a little bit too much time invulnerable. I mean, I guess it would kind of negate the mines on the floor, but they're so easy to not get hit by. He's easy to jump over himself. Really, the only attack that's difficult to dodge is the bullets that he shoots. The missiles can be a little bit tricky, they're fine. I honestly think this would just be a better fight if they skipped the whole mine thing. Sure, make him invulnerable when he's in tank mode moving across the screen, but let him just come out of it immediately and start shooting missiles again. That would be a way better fight. But yeah, I'm gonna have to dock him points for the invulnerability. I'm not a fan of extended invulnerability, as I think we all know by now. As such, Mars has landed himself a place in the B tier. Next to Oil Man. Our next star droid is Mercury. Now, an interesting thing to note about Mercury is that it is actually not possible to have his weakness when you first fight him. Like all the other Mega Man World games on the Game Boy, the game is divided up into 2 sets of 4 star droids, instead of the usual 8 robot masters available from the start. And the star droid that holds Mercury's weakness is in the 2nd set, while Mercury is in the 1st set. So, that said, the fight is completely different when you buster him. It's actually kind of an interesting fight. He will shoot out his grab buster, which can steal items from you. He can't use them, but you lose them. They just fly off of you, and you don't get them back if he does hit you with it. It could be anything from a single P chip to full energy tanks. He can steal anything you're holding that's not like a permanent upgrade. So, you don't want to get hit with that. Luckily, a charged up Mega Buster shot will interrupt him from doing it when he has fully formed and cause him to go into his movement phase. When he's in his movement phase, he kind of has a little bit of Yellow Devil in him, because he will turn into a blob that will, in 2 different ways, send 2 smaller blobs away, and they'll all reform into Mercury on the other side of the arena. The first way is he'll just send them out from him from a distance that you can jump in between, and then they'll all slide together to form Mercury in the corner. The other way is to send the blobs out one at a time, bouncing along the arena, and you can slide under them, and then when they all meet up on the other side, they will reform into Mercury. And this is his pattern. He repeats it He alternates between the two methods reliably, and if you don't interrupt his grab buster attack, he shoots off a ton of shots. That said, his weakness is the black hole bomb. Or, well, I think it might just be called black hole, because black hole bomb is Galaxy Man's move. Either way, it's the black hole, and it doesn't stop him from doing the grab buster. You can't even destroy the grab buster with it. He's just gonna shoot grab busters while you're waiting for the black hole to hit. Also, the way the black hole works is kind of like the Power Stone, except a little bit worse. It just slowly rotates outward from the point of origin, and it's very slow. So since I had to record this fight twice, I decided to do it two different ways. The first one was to do it the more natural and sensible way, where you would just use the black hole bomb and wait for it to hit him and dodge his grab busters. Doesn't work out so hot, and I almost actually lost the fight. The second way was much more effective. You just get hit by him, stand in his hitbox, and use the black hole bomb, which takes off half his health. You have to do this twice. So, Mercury is a fight that I'm kind of conflicted about, because as I showed, it's kind of a fun fight to buster, but it's not good with the weakness at all. It's not an F tier, but yeah, he is a D tier. Very, very high D tier, because with the weakness, that fight has problems. I almost forgot to say that his weakness, the black hole, deals 5 damage to him when it hits him. Next up we have Neptune. And just like with Mercury, it is impossible to fight Neptune with his weakness in the first go round. Not because the Star Droid that holds his weakness is in the second round of Star Droids, but actually, this game doesn't just have 8 Star Droids. The Star Droid that holds Neptune's weakness is one that serves as a midway boss, similar to the midway stages in Mega Man 7 and Mega Man 8. Once you defeat the first Star Droids, the only thing you can do at this point is fight this new 5th Star Droid. And so, his weapon is the Spark Chaser. It deals 3 damage to Neptune. And yeah, so let me talk about the Buster fight, since you have to go through it first. It's not bad. Neptune's a really jumpy boy. He jumps high. Don't expect to jump over him, so you got to plan to slide under him. From what I've seen, he does 2 attacks when he jumps all the way across the screen. One is to jump high and then pound the ground, which will make the screen shake, making it basically impossible for you to jump or slide. And while the screen's shaking, little water droplets will fall from the ceiling and try to hit you. The other attack he can do when he jumps across the screen is shoot out his signature weapon, the salt water. And the salt water will just be a blob that he shoots at your location, and when it hits the floor, it explodes into like 3 tiny droplets that can still damage you. So, let's talk about fighting Neptune with his weakness, the Spark Chaser. He's a joke. If you have enough health to survive firing the weapon 3 times, you don't even have to aim it, you win. It is a laser that will seek him out, and he does not move fast enough to avoid getting hit by it, and it will stick around long enough to hit him 3 times. 7 hits with it, and he's done. You do still have enough time to need to dodge stuff. He may get 1.5 cycle out before he gets hit enough. So I'm not going to dock him too harshly for having a weapon that completely trivializes him as his weakness. But at the same note, he doesn't have a lot of problems. So he's going to be B tier, but he's going to be real low B tier. And I think that's fair, because I think I put Galaxy Man at the bottom of the B tier for basically the same reason, having a weakness that trivializes him. Our next star droid is Pluto. For all the furries out there, he is a cat-themed star droid. And your first instinct might be, hey, I haven't used Tango on anybody yet because he's not been very effective against bosses. Let's have a cat versus cat fight. Unfortunately, he takes 0 damage to Tango. I think that was a real missed opportunity there. However, his weakness is the Grab Buster, which deals 3 damage to him every time it hits him, and not only that, it restores a pip of your health when it returns to you with the stolen health, which does make him a pretty easy fight to just face tank. I mean, I gotta give him credit, it's interesting. However, unlike our last star droid, which was a total joke with his weakness, this fight can actually last a little while, even with the Grab Buster. And the attacks are quite difficult to actually dodge. Pluto will start out shooting what appears to be Hadokens. He'll alternate shooting one at Mega Man's face level and one that's at his feet level. And he'll do this a couple times before he turns into like a shockwave or something and zooms across the floor. And when he reaches the other side of the room, he will jump onto the wall opposite of that, about midway up, and then jump into the corner on the wall that he started from. And at this point, he will aim his tail at you and try to shoot a couple missiles at you one at a time. After this, he will drop to the floor and repeat the pattern. It can be tricky to dodge, but it's an interesting fight. It's a pretty good fight even. I would actually put Pluto in the A tier. But where in the A tier? Probably hanging out with Nightman. Next up we have Saturn. Ugh. This guy sucks. So, he will start by throwing his little hoop up into the air, across the screen to the other wall, at which point he will slide across the ground really fast to reach it, and it seems almost impossible to dodge this. After he catches it, he will quickly jump back to the other side, and he will use Black Hole, which when he uses it freezes time, so you can't move, and you just have to have happened to be directly underneath him when he uses it to not get hit by the barrage of bullets that he shoots all the way around him except underneath. He also has an attack where he pulls his ring out and has like a little portal looking thing in it. I'm not sure what this does. I think if you're using the weakness, it's not going to do anything, but I think if you're using the Mega Buster, that might either reflect or just negate your shots. I'm not entirely certain. He is weak to the electric shock, which deals 4 damage to him, and can actually hit him multiple times due to the fact that invincibility frames are very short in this game, but he almost always seems to slide immediately after getting hit. And it's not good to have a weapon you have to be so close on. Not to mention, the actual hitbox on the electric shock is extremely janky. This fight's not good. Not good at all. Yeah, you're hanging out with Turbo Man in the D tier. Bottom of the D tier. I do not like Saturn. Next up we have Terra, the leader of the Star Droids. After you've defeated the first 4 Star Droids, he shows up. And he doesn't have a stage. It's just a cutscene and then a boss fight. Interestingly though, when you reach the end of the cutscene, before he actually has his health fill up and the fight proper starts, you can go into the pause menu and change your weapon. He is actually weak to the Deep Digger, which deals 4 damage to him. However, there's only 10 blocks in the arena that you can use as ammo. So it's kind of got the Gutsman problem going. However, I do believe they respawn if you die, so it's not that big a deal. And 10 is plenty unless you miss a lot. So, his strategy. He will start out by shooting these 3 balls that are rotating that slowly move horizontally across the screen. If they touch you, they just freeze you in place. Then he will follow that up with his signature weapon, the Spark Chaser, which will try to home in on your location, but it moves a lot slower when he fires it than it does when you fire it. After this, he'll probably jump up and teleport. He'll disappear from the arena for a little while and then appear on the opposite side. And he generally drops down to try to hit you again with a Spark Chaser after teleporting. You know, for the leader of the Star Droids, you would think he would be more difficult than this. And I mean, I guess having a truly finite amount of uses with his weakness is something. I don't know. I think it's an odd choice that they don't have a typical weakness chain and decided to actually give you a new weapon for the mid-boss, and it's totally part of the weakness chain. I mean, there's 9 weapons total here, and they all form a perfect loop. But it's odd. You don't actually get to refight Terra. This is the only time you fight him. Unfortunately, it would have been nice to have him show up in the refights since he is part of the weakness chain, but alas. As for the fight, I do have to, in good conscience, dock it some points for the finite resources to use as a weakness. I mean, yeah, I know technically all weapons are finite, but there are less blocks available than you have energy to actually use the weapon. And that, I think, is an issue. Even though it's not a big issue in this fight like it is with Cutman, I don't know, I don't like that. I think your energy for the weapon should be what limits you, not what's physically available in the arena to use with said weapon. Why even have the energy in that case? However, the basic steps of the fight, the cycles, they are fun to deal with. The Spark Chaser doesn't move so fast that it's hard to avoid, and neither does the 3 spinning balls that freeze you in place. But he doesn't do a whole lot else other than that. I mean, I know he does the teleport where he tries to appear behind you, but it's not really an attack. Like, he'll try to appear behind you and then throw a Spark Chaser at you. This isn't like a first-person view game where you gotta take a lot of time to turn around. No, instantly when you press the button you turn around, so it doesn't really do much for him to try to appear behind you like that. I don't know, it's not an impressive fight, and for that I think he actually belongs in the C tier, right behind Iceman. Next up we have Uranus. Now, Uranus, he likes to jump a lot, and whenever he touches the ground, it doesn't stun you, but it does make you make a small bounce off the ground, which can stop you from jumping and sliding. He has really simple pattern. He just jumps up a couple times before he eventually picks up a block out of the floor, throws it at you horizontally. When it hits the wall, it kind of explodes outward. As long as you stay towards the middle when jumping over it, it'll never hit you. And then he will jump across the other side, and this is the point where really the only opportunity to hit him with his weakness, which is the break dash, which deals 5 damage to him without taking a hit in turn. And then at this point, he will jump a couple times before jumping high and slamming down. And the first time I fought him, I did not see the tell on screen where the blocks drop down to try to one-hit kill you. Even now, I think they don't show up on the screen long enough for it to be fair. But, you know, after you know that this is his gimmick, it is extremely easy to dodge, because he always does it on the same 4 blocks on the far wall away from him. And as long as you stay in the center, you should be able to avoid it. But it did legitimately catch me off guard and kill me instantly the first time I fought him, and I was pretty mad about it. It's not a good gimmick. I do not like it when bosses can just instantly kill you. Pair this with the fact that the only safe time to hit him with his weakness is once like every 15 seconds or so, and you have a drawn out fight. Now, if you don't care about getting hit and you make your inputs really well, you can actually kill him extremely fast using the break dash, but that is difficult to do, and most people who aren't experienced and know how to do that would likely just trade a single hit with him, which is not economically sound. This fight definitely falls into the D tier. Just below Dive Man. Next up we have Venus, and you cannot convince me otherwise that Venus is not just Toadman wearing a yellow coat of paint and some blinky antenna. Now, I think he's actually supposed to be based on a crab, judging by the way he walks around and the fact that his weapon is a bubble. But yeah, he looks a lot like a yellow Toadman. I'm sorry, that's yellow Toadman. He's even weak to a weapon similar to Toadman, the photon missile, which deals 3 damage to him when it makes contact. Unfortunately, it will both destroy and get destroyed by the bubbles that Venus uses. And I'm not a fan of this weakness for Venus because it hangs around for way too long before moving. You can set it up so that he lands on it, because he does jump and hang in the air, with leaving you plenty of time to set the trap before he lands and get out of the way. But I don't know. The weapon is not great, but you know, it gets the job done. I can't really fault him too much for the weapon itself sucking, but it's not a bad weapon for him. It's just kind of aggravating, I guess. I don't know. So, really all he does is he'll crab walk. And then shoot some bubble bombs, jump up in the air, and try to land on it. It's definitely not the most intimidating of Star Droids to fight, but I don't know. I do have to dock him points for the weakness not being great. So he's going to be in the C tier. Probably a high C tier. You know, I also docked Blade Man for having a weakness that kind of sucked to use, so it feels appropriate for him to go next to Blade Man. But yeah, he's just Toadman 2.0 as far as I'm concerned. Now, normally I would say that was the last of our Star Droids, as we don't have any more down there in the tier list to pull from. However, there's one that didn't get put on the tier list that I did want to talk about, because it is an extremely good fight. There's one more Star Droid named Sunstar. And maybe he's not on this list because he's actually the final boss of the game. Spoilers. But, yeah, so first off, Sunstar. He takes 1 damage from virtually everything. And the things that he doesn't take 1 damage from, he takes no damage from. Or it's something that's just simply not possible to hit him with at all, like the Deep Digger. So this is really a Buster fight only. But the Buster works fine. You can actually get multiple hits off on him if you have the upgrade that lets you grab. And I think it'll do like 3 or 4 pips of damage each time it triggers the damage. So this is a 3-stage fight. And every third you knock off, he will stop whatever he's doing, or he won't stop mid-attack, but he will, if he's not, you know, in the process of firing something or doing something, he will jump up and fire a flame at your location, which will spread outward towards the sides when it hits the floor to destroy the arena, and you'll go on to the next phase of the fight. This can also be done while he still has projectiles on the screen, which can still damage you, and the fire itself will damage you as well if it touches you. So, let's talk about the first phase. So it's important to note that during the entirety of this fight, there's like a weird low gravity thing going on. You can't jump higher than normal, but it does make all your jumps really floaty. And you have to utilize this to your advantage. In the first phase, he'll open by charging up to shoot a big old laser. And what you want to do is time your jump. You kind of just have to get a feel for it. It charges up for about 2 seconds before he fires it. And you want to be close enough to him that you actually land on the other side of him, because as soon as he's done firing this big laser horizontally across the bottom of the screen, he's going to immediately start running to the other side. And simply put, there's not enough time to jump over him if you don't land on the opposite side of him. After this, he will shoot 3 shockwaves at the ground, one at a time that will travel along the ground until they meet your X position, at which point they will shoot directly up off the screen. Easy enough to avoid. You just gotta either jump across their path or bait and switch and move backward in midair. Either way, after he shoots these three, he will begin charging up the laser again. While he's shooting the shockwaves across the floor, is a good chance to shoot your charged up Mega Buster at him, which will have a homing effect if you've got the right upgrades. So it's worth charging it up, even though it only does 1 damage. After which, he will, of course, shoot a fire at your location to destroy the floor, and you'll land in the second arena. In the second phase of the fight, he'll start out by shooting 3 fireman-style waves of fire across the arena at set intervals. They come fairly quick, but not so fast that it's hard to jump over them. After he shoots these 3 fire waves, he will shoot these 2 spark balls that will bounce, have 2 small bounces across the screen, and on the third bounce extremely high, which you can slide under the third bounce. And then he himself will make a couple of small hops across the screen before repeating the process. Just like before, once he takes a third of his health, he will jump up and shoot a fire at you, which will destroy the floor, moving you to the final arena of the fight. In the final phase of the fight, he will just do 2 things. He will go all Sonic the Hedgehog, rolling around the screen, doing 2 loops before landing on the opposite side of the screen. And after he lands, he will float up to the top of the screen and begin charging. And at this point, you have to hit him to interrupt him. It doesn't have to be a charged attack, thankfully, just a lemon will do it. But if you don't hit him, he will use a screen nuke that does a lot of damage. No way to avoid it. You have to interrupt him. But he does give you plenty of warning before he does it. And this is all he does. Once you interrupt him, he'll land back down and do the Sonic the Hedgehog around the screen again. All in all, this guy would definitely be in the S tier. Like, no question. This was an extremely fun fight to learn. And nothing was unfair about it. Like, yes, it was difficult, but it was completely fair. Plenty of tells for everything he did. And the pattern was extremely predictable that, even though it was 3 phases of it, easy to learn. Just extremely satisfying to do this fight all around. I wish I could have actually put him on the tier list to show that he's an S tier, but, you know, what you gonna do? However, the Star Droids aren't the only robots that you fight in this game. There are 3 more known as the Mega Man Killers. And then there's also one other that never officially joined the rank of the Mega Man Killers, but probably considers himself one. These were the special bosses in the previous 4 Mega Man World games that each gave you your last additional weapon in addition to the ones you got from the normal 8 Robot Masters. And the first one of these that we're going to be covering is Ballad from Mega Man World 4. The first time you fight Ballad in Mega Man World 4, he will begin the fight by trying to jump onto your location, which he will follow up by making 2 short distance hops where he hops to the top of the screen before landing. After which he will run a short distance, usually in your direction, and then he will fire his signature weapon, the Ballad Cracker, horizontally across the screen and diagonally towards the corner. And that's his pattern. He repeats this. Now, he doesn't actually have any weaknesses, but he will take 2 damage from the Power Stone. I wouldn't really call that a weakness. He does actually take more damage from a charged up Mega Buster. And you're better off doing that, considering that you're gonna get hit a lot if you're greedy about your attacks in this fight. When he gets down to 1 hit point, he will be damaged and make his escape. Then you will eventually rematch him later in the game. When you encounter him later in the game, the fight is the exact same right down to his weaknesses, and now you actually have the Power Stone so you can use it against him. But for whatever reason, he decides to put on sunglasses for this fight. I'm not sure why. And the only other difference is when he tries to jump on top of you before making his short distance hops, he will leave a ballad cracker behind on the floor that will shortly explode thereafter. This time, however, when you destroy him, he's done. You won't fight him again in Mega Man World 4. And he doesn't get seen again until the next game, Mega Man World 5. Where at some point during the Wily Stage you will encounter him. This time around he does actually have 2 weaknesses in the Photon Missile and the Bubble Bomb. Although given his tendency to jump a lot, the Bubble Bomb is probably the more appropriate weakness to use against him. That's not to say that it's not possible to set up the Photon Missile as a trap for him to jump on either. So, use whichever one you find works best. Now, the actual strategy Ballad employs in Mega Man World 5 is the same as the first fight with Ballad in Mega Man World 4, with one difference that when he turns around to shoot his Ballad Cracker at you, he only shoots one, and it's the horizontal one. And it explodes in much the same manner as the one that he leaves on the floor when he jumps onto your location in the second fight in Mega Man World 4. So in that way, it's kind of a combination of the 2 of them. However, this is not the version of the fight that I'm going to be judging his place on the tier list from. Ballad, along with his other 2 Mega Man killer robots, were actually put into Mega Man 10 as part of DLC. Each of them is at the end of a stage that is a pretty close approximation of their respective games' Wily Stage. Now, just to get this out of the way, this applies to all 3 of the Mega Man killers in Mega Man 10. They take 0 damage from every single special weapon from Mega Man 10's Robot Masters, and they take 1 damage from the Mega Buster, the Bass Buster, the Treble Boost, and the lemons of the Proto Buster, and 3 damage from a charged up Proto Buster. That said, they do have a weakness, because with these stages they did bring 3 new weapons, the weapons of the Mega Man killers themselves, and Ballad is weak to the Screw Crusher, which deals 3 damage to him. Similar to his weakness in Mega Man World 5, the Bubble Bomb, it does move upward. However, it also comes back down, so if you miss him, you might hit him on the flip side. This is a very good weakness for him, given his tendency to jump. In general, he's had good weaknesses for his pattern all throughout the series. Now, his pattern has changed slightly once again. It is basically the same as it's always been, where he'll try to jump onto your location, he'll make a couple of short distance hops towards you where his vertical height for these hops is quite high, and then he will run along the ground, following that up by shooting a Ballad Cracker at you. The difference here is every single time he jumps, he leaves behind a Ballad Cracker on the ground, which creates a little more obstacles for you to have to jump over. It is always possible to jump over them. They'll never be Like, he always jumps a set amount of distance, except when he's doing the jump that tracks to your location. So they'll always be spaced out enough that you can jump between them. And the only other thing worth noting is that the ballad cracker that he shoots after walking along the ground is the same as it was in Mega Man World 5, where he only shoots the horizontal one that explodes like the other ballad crackers do. Ballad is a pretty good fight. I'm not going to say he's an S tier fight because he doesn't do anything to really amaze me, but he is a solid fight. One that is definitely deserving of the A tier. But where in the A tier do I want him? Definitely above Blockman. Definitely above Yamato Man, Nitro Man, Dynamo Man, Impact Man. Yeah, you know, I think I could put him up there with Ring Man. Next up we have Inker. Now, Inker was originally meant to play the same role that currently is played by Bass. He was meant to be a rival to Mega Man, and I don't believe they ever intended for him to be part of a series of Mega Man killer robots. I think he was supposed to be the only one, much like how Bass is. Now, he first appeared in Mega Man World 1, and after you defeated the Mega Man 2 Robot Masters, you would also have to fight Inker, and none of the weapons do anything to him. In fact, it hardly even seems like your Mega Buster does something to him, but it does actually damage him. Now, Inker's strategy is he will start out running across the screen, and then he will raise his spear up in the air. This is when you can attack him. You can't damage him otherwise. When his spear's in the air, it will draw in all of your Mega Buster shots, and you'll hear a ding each time one of them hits, and it'll deal 1 pip of damage. That's the most damage you can deal to it. After either a short amount of time has hit, or... well, actually, I think it is just straight up an amount of time. He will fire a wave at you from his spear. The spear itself does have a hitbox. It takes up about half of this Game Boy crunched screen, so it is kind of difficult to actually dodge it and still be able to get hits in on him. And then the wave comes out from the tip of the spear and flies off the other side of the screen horizontally. There are 3 charges to this wave. If you don't hit him at all, or you hit him once, it'll be the level 1 charge. Twice, it'll be slightly bigger. I think it'll deal 2 damage instead of 1. And then the fully charged one, when you hit him 3 times, will be quite large. You can still jump over it, no problem. But it does a lot of damage if it hits you. Now, when he fires the shots back at you with his Mirror Buster, he will then do one of several things to cross back to the other side of the screen. And it's best to think of it like this. He can either run or he can make a jump. And he can change his tactic once he reaches the middle of the screen. So he could run all the way across. He could do 2 jumps all the way across. He could run halfway and then jump the rest of the way. I believe he can also jump halfway and run the rest of the way. Unfortunately, there's no real tell for which one he's going to do. You just have to make a guess and commit to it. I found what worked best to avoid getting hit was to wait where he was going to end up and just be prepared to jump over him after he reaches the halfway point, and just try to react fast enough to back out of the jump if he decides to jump himself. Now, the next time Inker appeared was in Mega Man Soccer, which doesn't count. But the next time after that Inker appeared was in Mega Man World 5. And his strategy is the exact same. Like, the exact same. There's no difference. Right down to the fact that he is not weak to literally anything. He takes 0 damage to all weapons except the Mega Buster, which will deal 1 damage for a lemon, 2 damage for the partial charge, and 3 damage if you charge it up enough to throw the fist. There is a little bit of a twist though. There is an upgrade in this game that once you shoot the fist out, it can actually grab and continue to damage. And this will allow you to get a lot of damage on Inker really fast every cycle. He's a bit easier because of this, but otherwise this fight is exactly the same as it was in the first game. And the next time, and final time so far that Inker appears, is in the DLC in Mega Man 10. Now I just want to make a side note, he does apparently take 1 damage if you can manage to set up the Mirror Buster to hit him, but his weakness is actually the Ballad Cracker, which will deal 3 damage to him, and also it will instantly charge up his Mirror Buster all the way, causing him to fire it and move on to the next step of the pattern. It is worth noting that since this is an NES style game, the arena is much bigger and it's more reasonable to not get hit by his spear, which previously took up basically half of the arena when he launched his attack. Now takes up hardly any of it. Getting hit by the spear is basically a non-issue. The only other thing worth noting about his Mirror Buster attack this time around is that you can actually cause him to attempt to use it in the middle of moving across the screen by attacking him with the Ballad Cracker. He can also just normally be damaged while he's moving this time around with the Ballad Cracker as well. And perhaps the best change to him is that he still has the exact same ways of moving across from one side to the other. However, if he does jump to the middle, he will have a slight pause before he starts running. So you don't have to react immediately to that. You still don't know whether he's going to run the rest of the way or jump until that pause, but he will just jump again immediately, so you do know he will run if he pauses. So a little bit of a tell. It goes a long way, and they finally did Inker right in this iteration. And yeah, this is also a high A tier. I would actually put Inker above Ringman. Next up we have the final Mega Man killer robot, and actually I believe Keiji Inafune's favorite robot master, Punk. Now, Punk, much like Inker, is immune to everything in his debut game, Mega Man World 3, except for the Mega Buster, which will deal 1 damage for a normal shot and 3 damage for a charge shot. Now, Punk has a really simple strategy that comes at you fast and furious. When he first appears, he'll drop down from the top of the screen, and he will immediately curl up in a ball and bounce in place a couple times before just moving straight horizontally across the screen to the other side in one of 2 locations, either the bottom tile that you'll have to jump over or the top tile that you'll have to slide under. Once he reaches the other side of the screen, he will start jumping, and he'll throw, I believe, between 2 and 4 screw crushers at you that, unlike when you fire them, just head straight towards your location at the time he throws it, and off the screen if he misses. After he has had his fill of throwing screw crushers, he will curl up into the ball and repeat the cycle. It's a pretty good fight. It'll trip you up the first couple times you fight it, and it does feel good to figure out how it works and learn how to not get hit by it. The next appearance Punk makes is in Mega Man World 5 in the Wily Stage. He's the third boss you fight in that stage. And unlike Inker, he does actually take damage from the normal set of weapons, which is everything except for the Grab Buster and Black Hole, and of course the Deep Digger. There's no ammo for it. He does have a secondary weakness in the Bubble Bomb, which deals 3 damage to him, and I guess you could make good use of it if you wanted to get up close to him. I don't know why you would, that's just a bad idea. His true weakness though is the Salt Water, which deals 4 damage to him. And of course he is still vulnerable to the Mega Buster, which does the standard 1, 2, and 3 damage for the various phases of it. Now his strategy is the exact same as it was in Mega Man World 3. But they made him a little bit easier. He just moves slower in general. He doesn't move as fast when he's jumping. He doesn't move as fast when he's in ball form rolling across the screen. And I think even the Screw Crushers don't move as fast. It could be a little off-putting if you're really only used to fighting him in Mega Man World 3. But other than that, it's really the same fight. Just now he has a weakness and you can practically one-cycle him. And Punk's final appearance so far is in Mega Man 10, and just like his fellow Mega Man killers, the fight is much improved just simply by being in an NES style game and having a full-size screen. He does have his original speed restored, and there is a little bit of a twist when he goes into his ball form and moves across the screen. He has several variable heights he can go at. I believe there's 4 different heights he can go at now, with the highest one being the only one you can't actually jump over. And I believe the second one being the only one you actually need to slide under. But other than that, his strategy is basically the same. I think he can throw more Screw Crushers before he decides to curl up into a ball and change sides of the screen, however. I'm not sure exactly on the number of Screw Crushers he'll throw each cycle. His weakness is the Mirror Buster, which, this being his weakness by itself, dramatically changes how you go about this fight. As I just said in the Mega Man World 5 version of the fight, his secondary weakness was one that required proximity, and that's not a good idea. However, with the Mirror Buster, you want to get hit by his Screw Crushers. And what makes this an interesting weakness for him is that the challenge is in making sure that you are the correct amount of distance away from him, because he only throws the Screw Crushers while he's jumping, so you've got to be just far enough away that he's either going to fall on the Mirror Buster when it reaches his X-axis, or he'll jump into it. And it does create a very interesting new dynamic to this fight, and I like this a lot. And yeah, I guess I'm with Keiji Inafune in thinking that this is one of the better robots that he's made, because I would give Punk S tier. Not a high S tier. A lot of these other fights are just too good, but I would put him above Grenade Man. And lastly, we have Quint. Quint is one of the dumbest villains in Mega Man. And not just because of his fight, but his lore is really stupid too. If you're unaware, Quint, who appeared first in Mega Man World 2, was Mega Man from a peaceful future where Wily had been defeated. The present day, Dr. Wily has a time machine, went to that future and kidnapped Mega Man, who had been de-weaponized since there was no need, which made capturing him simple, and was reprogrammed by Wily, which kind of goes against the pre-established lore of Mega Man 1, which stated that Mega Man was resistant to being reprogrammed by Wily. Whatever. Quint is dumb. So yeah, he's just Mega Man wearing green and a Quick Man boomerang on his helmet. And his attack is equally dumb. He does one thing. He summons his pogo stick, Sakugarne, at the beginning of the fight. And the one thing he does is he will try to jump on Mega Man. And once he lands, he will dig into the ground, because I guess his pogo stick is also a jackhammer, which will create 4 small pebbles that will land near Sakugarne. And he will just keep repeating this pattern. He'll just try to jump on you. He gives you plenty of time to attack him. Once you easily slide out of the way of his jump, he is weak to several things as well. He will only take 1 damage to the Mega Buster, but he'll take 2 damage to the Metal Blade, 2 damage to the Air Shooter, 2 damage to the Leaf Shield, 2 damage to the Needle Cannon, 2 damage to the Magnet Missile, 2 damage to the Top Spin. He'll take 4 damage from the Crash Bomber, and his actual weakness, the Hard Knuckle, deals 5 damage. He is pathetic, and it's kind of an insult to the other 3 to call him a Mega Man killer. He's not a Mega Man killer. He doesn't have a MMK, or in the Japanese version, RMK serial number. Because he's Mega Man, his actual serial number is like DLN01, I think. But then I think Wily gave him another one, which was like DWNXX or something like that. But anyway, he's not a Mega Man killer, but he likes to hang out with the Mega Man killers, like the annoying little brother that tags along. In any case, he does show up again in Mega Man World 5 in the same stage as the other Mega Man killers. He is the second boss you fight in that stage. The bosses do go in the order of the Mega Man World games, with Anchor being first, Quint being second, Punk being third, and Ballad being fourth. Quint's final appearance is in Mega Man World 5, like I said, and they at least did him the solid of not giving him a plethora of weapons that deal a lot of damage to him. In fact, he has the standard array of 1 damage from 1 or 0 damage from everything that's not his weakness. However, if you thought this was going to be his redemption arc, gonna have to disappoint you there, because the fight is the exact same. The literal only difference, right down to even how his weakness actually functions, is that his weakness, the Photon Missile, only deals 3 damage instead of the 5 that the Hard Knuckle dealt. But I mean, the Photon Missile is just the Hard Knuckle with a different appearance. It functions the exact same. It hangs on the screen for a minute before it zooms off towards him. Yeah, I'm sorry, Quint is really stupid. I'm not sure what they were thinking. I don't know why they brought him back. Maybe they just wanted to give a little Easter egg to players of the Game Boy series, because I know a lot of people kind of skipped the Game Boy series, just kind of treated it as the crappy Game Boy version of the NES games, and they're really not. But hopefully, if you watch this whole series, you already know that by now. Yeah, I cannot rank Quint highly. He is saved from the F tier, as I'm thinking about it. And I can't put him in the D tier because he doesn't have any actual, like, serious problems with his fight. But that said, it's easy enough to say that he goes no higher than the very, very bottom of the C tier. And with that, there were only 8 remaining.